Hi everyone and welcome to episode 311 of the Mighty Whites podcast. I'm Jack, as always joined by Casey.
Well, that's it. Season's over. Wrap it up, boys.
Yeah.
We're all done.
Well, we said we had a bad feeling, didn't we, ahead of this one? Tight pitch, feels like QPR away last season. But this wasn't the thing I was expecting. I was expecting us to really chuck in a terrible performance. And while this wasn't good, my bad feeling wasn't that Joe Perreault would suddenly have the worst of Bamforditis in front of goal. Yeah, we weren't great, were we?
No, it felt like a very disjointed performance. I think I texted you guys saying this looks like a group of players who haven't played together before. Full credit has to go to Portsmouth for pressing as high up the pitch. You know, straight away from goal kicks, they were setting up to stop us playing out, and what I can only assume would have led to your dad screaming, "Send it long into the channel for Dan James."
Yeah.
And we just never really looked for an alternative other than, well, if we just keep giving it to Joe Roden, some space should appear somewhere, right?
Yeah, it was weird watching. Unfortunately, I was working during this game, so I haven't had as much of a detailed look as I normally would. But we did seem to just be falling into their traps because it wasn't like their press was really get after everything. It was just sensible. They just got themselves into the right positions. It was well coached. It was a bit like, we had it with West Brom, didn't we? Where they weren't really going at us, they were just getting into the right spots. And Portsmouth had a little bit of that. But despite all of the, it not being a very good performance and we looked sloppy at times, like the passing in the middle of the park I thought was really poor. Like it's Tanaka's worst game in a Leeds shirt by an absolute mile. Which is, of course, because normally he's very good. But despite all of that, we should have won the game. Joe Perreault, Solomon's shot saved comes to Perreault. But I've seen a lot of people going, oh, well, he struck it well, it's a bit unlucky. And he has struck it well, but just don't aim straight at the keeper. And if that ball falls to Joe Roden and he just swings a leg at it, I'll go, all right, fair enough. But I expect better out of Perreault. And the second one, it's a really good counter. We get through. Solomon round the keeper, lays it back. And how Joe Perreault skies that. He's the best finisher at the club, and he's produced two of the worst finishers you'll see.
Yeah. Certainly with the second one, I think very disappointed with himself.
Oh yeah, that's definitely worse than the first one.
And it's that thing of no matter the level of football you have played at, we could all just sit there, watch that and go, just get your head over it.
Yeah.
Just get your head over the ball and direct it. That's all that needed.
Yeah. We've all done that as well. Just like sky.
Oh, yeah, I'm not saying under that sort of pressure at that sort of speed I will finish that, but I know what he should have done.
Yeah. Yeah. You can't grade them, although there was a thing later on where I legitimately think just a bloke behind the pub would have probably done better. Yeah, it was poor, and we do have to now be the whingy football fan because you can't ignore it. I always say you control the controllables, and even with the things that were just down to Leeds, we should have had enough to win this game. But how the fuck he hasn't given a penalty for that, just hoofing Dan James up in the air, is absolutely beyond me.
I think when it's so blatant that Neil Warnock sat in the studio going, and how they've not given Leeds a penalty, I don't know. I think it was, I think the call at the time was with VAR that absolutely gets given, because it's so blatant, and I understand in terms of. You understand it somewhat in terms of the movement of the ball.
Because it goes that way, because James kicks it off his other leg.
But the referee has an excellent view of it.
Yeah.
It's not as if he's on the blind side to it or anything like that. He has a great view of it. And it's almost as if he takes a moment and then just goes, yeah, he got the ball there.
Yeah, it's one of those ones that's like, I don't. This isn't like worrying about it. Is there something conspiratorial? I think it's Robert Jones, isn't it, who normally referees Premier League games.
Mm.
And I think that all the Premier League referees, I mean, we've said also VAR makes referees worse at being referees. And I think that he's got in the habit of going, well, I'm about 80% sure that was a penalty. I'll not give it, let the play go on, because it'll come back. If I'm wrong, if it is a pen, I'll find out in 20 seconds. And I think that referees that referee in the Premier League get so used to that being there as a failsafe that they've lost a bit of bottle on decisions. Because he like puts the whistle to his mouth and then goes, no. And yeah, it's a terrible bit of refereeing. It's such a blatant penalty. But even without that, we should have had enough to win game.
I think probably whilst we're on with him as well, the brief chat with Ogilvy after the challenge on Meslier as well.
God, yeah, I forgot about that. There was some people a lot more annoyed at that tackle than me, but it's a yellow.
It's a yellow. One of the things I hate, and this is a Hinchcliffe special, is well, look, the ball's there to be won. Like, right.
Yeah, I agree.
But that doesn't negate the consequences of not winning the ball. A 50-50 doesn't mean that if you lose the said 50-50, it's like, well, what can you do? No, you get booked.
I think I put on our Twitter during the game, I have absolutely no issue with Ogilvy going in for the ball there. But it's a yellow card every time you don't get there and you catch the keeper. But like, I mean, I did see people going, oh, he's high and it's a red. He is a little bit off the ground, but the ball is being kicked upwards. He catches Meslier on like the toe of his foot. I don't think it's dangerous, so it's a yellow.
And then within about 90 seconds, maybe a touch later, there is a booking for one of their midfielders for...
It was Regan Poole straight after, because I remember, I think I replied to the same tweet going, that was less of a yellow.
It was stuck out a leg. And it wasn't even a deliberate trip. It was a poor stick out the leg to win the ball, miss it, trip your man on the halfway line. You've not particularly denied him going anywhere because we were going sideways. And then, just not even a moment's thought on that yellow card was out.
Yeah.
And you just think, but how, talk me through your decision making.
I don't think he could. I think if you said, why was that one and that one wasn't, I think they'd just go, well, we only see it once. That's what they'd say straight away. The performance wasn't great. Everyone had the weird feeling. And at the start of the second half in particular, and sort of almost right through the second half, if being honest, but really the first 15, 20 minutes, that's when Portsmouth did get on top properly. Like they had, I don't know when that graphic flashed up, maybe 10 minutes in, but they'd had about 70% of the ball. Like they really did get on top without actually really creating loads, which is why I was so annoyed at the goal. In Ogilvy's pass, he's played from 70 yards from the Leeds goal. And the first time someone touches the ball, it is 8 yards from the Leeds goal. And yes, Roden does get caught a bit flat-footed for running behind and stuff. And that isn't ideal. And he should either shout Meslier to come or he should shout that he's getting it. But Ilhan Mellier's starting position is 18 yards from the Leeds goal. He's run backwards 14 yards and got beat to the ball by 2. And this is the one I was on about, where if he just goes early for that ball, anyone with working limbs would have got there first. And it's that lack of confidence again. And it's so annoying because I actually think that aside, Meslier had one of his better games of the season. He claimed a load of crosses well. He punched a couple clear. He made a couple of decent saves. But he has like a 20-yard start and gets beat to it. And if he even just ran back to his line and stayed there and said, go on, it's a tight angle, beat me. But he then runs out and dives on the floor to make the finish easier. He makes 5 decisions and they're all wrong. And like, I would much rather be wrong about this. And I've been told on Twitter that I am wrong about this and that it's all Joe Rodon's fault. So I'm kind of hoping you tell me I'm wrong.
I would say I think the majority of blame does go to Meslier for the indecisiveness. Even if you discount sort of his initial starting position, there is the moment when he starts to step forward, changes his mind, and hesitates, and then goes for it. And again, it's like you say, it's that those split second decisions and the indecisiveness, and a lot of that will be down to his confidence levels at the moment as well.
Yeah, because generally speaking, rushing off his line is actually quite good. But it's the second time, because he did this at Hull, didn't he? He like ran out and stopped and just went, okay, lob it over me. That's the obvious decision. And although that one was 20 yards out and this one is 8, it's the same principle. Either come or stay back. On this, he came for the ball twice and went back 3 times. He had so much time.
I mean, one thing I do look at that and just think, taking Meslier out of this for a second. Joe Rodon, yes, he gets caught flat-footed, but I think he just reacts very slowly once it's past him as well. He acts with the confidence of a man who thinks Alisson is in goal for us. Like, this will be fine.
It's weird because he does like just physically appear to hate Ilan Meslier. He looks at him in a way that isn't complimentary.
And also, there seemed to be a huge gap between Rodon and Strauch.
Yeah, it was very split, wasn't it, at the time?
Yeah.
But I suppose they only had one player forward, so us having 2 back and pushing a centre-back being a bit wide is probably quite standard for us.
Yeah, it just... like you said, the whole thing is disappointing, and I do think the majority has to go to Meslier, but I just think we just looked all over the place in that situation, because obviously the ball, for the most part, goes down their left-hand side. Bogle is clearly quite high up the pitch at this point, so that's why Rodon's gone across, and then like there just seems to be this gap. And
I haven't actually gone back and looked at who was closing down Ogilvy. It wouldn't surprise me if that was Bogle.
Bogle, who I think Sunday and probably Wednesday night as well may have a difficult time, because he is playing with the knowledge of, if I make one tackle here, I'm out for 2 games.
Yeah, well, I think that there was 2 reasons for Byram coming on for him with 10 minutes left. I think one was, at a set piece, Byram can attack it better, and he did very nearly score with almost the last touch of the game. But I do think part of it was, we don't want to risk him getting booked in his last 10 minutes.
Yeah, and I think... Yeah, I just thought across the board, we just looked a lot slower than we have been, and there were some very frustrating moments in there. I found like there was a couple of times when Firpo gave it away and then just sort of stood and just sort of pondered his pass and why it hadn't made it. And you're like, just get back to left back, man.
Yeah. Should mention, because we're on about the missed chances, I mean, Firpo had an absolute setter. He doesn't get the same amount of criticism as Peru because he's a left back. But that one where he's through on goal, it's a poor finish, is that. And despite him being a left back, he would think he should do better. The header that hits the bar is unlucky. That's a good header.
Yeah. Really makes you think he should be starting up front.
Yeah.
If we can just put crosses into to Junior Firpo and just win the league with headers, I think we'll be okay. But yeah, like you say, that 1v1 where he goes through, where it's actually probably the nicest bit of football we played all game in the build-up.
It was one of the Peru skied basically open goal is a really good bit of play. That's the one where there's the ball down the right, isn't there, to release James and whipped across to Solomon. that was a really good bit of football as well. But those two were the two standout bits, definitely.
Yeah. And like I say, you get that 1v1 moment where you just think, just put it to the side of him. That's all you need to do. And we'll somehow have come away with this game with a point that you could argue that it's really weird to, because you look at the quality of the chances we had that were so good. And yet nigh on everything else was so poor.
Yeah, it's a weird situation because like no Leeds fan is claiming we played well, and yet we're all saying we probably deserve to win the game. And it's a weird situation to be in because that sounds like you're lying. But like, I mean, to be honest, I think if you're looking at just the way the game was played, I think a point was probably about right. But if you look at the chances, we probably should have won it. It was weird because watching the game, I thought Strauch was having a bit of a poor game. And he felt really sloppy on the ball. But I have seen the stats back, and his like passing stats and stuff were really high and getting the ball forward well. So I think I was probably being a bit harsh on him. I don't think I was being harsh on Tanaka. I think he had a really poor game. And I think that's probably why he got hooked for Rothwell relatively early.
Yeah, I think we've hit a really bad time for Tanaka to have a very poor game, Gruev to not be playing well.
The midfield pair just didn't. It just didn't work, did it?
And Rothwell not playing especially well in the game that he started. I think it was very. I think it very much summed up the performance was Rothwell's free kick that hit the first man.
Yeah,
where there was only one man.
Yeah.
And it with a precision free kick, he managed to pick him out.
Yeah. I do think that Nonto had a bit of a go when he came on and looked fairly lively. And I thought Ramazani made a difference when he came on. He really gave us a bit more impetus in attack. Like it was his cross for that Firpo header. But it was more just that they were both picking the ball up deep and sort of driving Leeds forward. So if I was... I mean, I couldn't give... I don't know if I could give anyone a man at match, really, from a Leeds perspective. But I thought they were the ones that made the most difference to how we played.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we've gone through all this and Brendan Aronson has gone without a mention because, my God, if he'd have actually done anything in the game...
Right. Look, I don't think for a second Farker will, but I'm sorry, we've got to drop him. He's done like 4 things in 12 games. And I don't care how good you have the ball. Especially Millwall will be camped on the edge of their box. You don't need him to be able to tear ass around in the same way. Like, this is the game. If you're gonna try a game without Aronson, this is the one.
I very much look at this point and think Nonto at 10 is the way you've got to go.
That's what I would do. I wonder if he'll go Joseph and play Peru at 10. But I would actually quite like to start Ramazani on the left and start Nonto at 10 against Millwall. Just switch it up a little bit with it being 3 games in 6 days anyway.
Yeah. It was always going to happen, this, wasn't it? The curse of having both the manager and player of the month.
Oh, yeah. You can't possibly win after that.
No.
It's... So, yeah, it was a disappointing one. It's not like... I mean, you would have thought that season was over if you went on Twitter. But that's
why I'm drinking, Jack.
Yeah, that's just the way it is. But, I mean, it really does tighten everything back up. We are still top, but it's only on goal difference. And we're only 2 points ahead of Burnley. Still got 8 on Sunderland. And going into the game against Millwall, all things being equal, we'll be third.
Yeah.
Because tonight, Burnley have got West Brom at home. You'd expect them to win that. Although West Brom are a decent side. So that's got a chance. Sunderland have got Preston at home. You'd expect them to win that. And Sheffield United have got Bristol City at home. You'd expect them to win that. So you would expect it to really tighten up and us to drop to third, which makes... it's still too early to say must win, but it's not far off must win against Millwall. And obviously, Leeds' record against Millwall is weird. Because it was crap for years, and then we actually had quite a good run of beating them, and we kept coming back from behind against them and stuff. But now, I mean, they've done the double overs this season. I'm not really reading out into the FA Cup game, to be honest, but the league game, I thought that they sort of physically beat us up a little bit, and we struggled to cope with it. Like I've gone on to FBref and checked. They restricted us to 0.7 xG in that game, which for us is really low. Like, we don't do that very often. I mean, admittedly, Millwall had 0.2 and won, but Leeds are going to Leeds. Millwall will. It's never an easy game.
Yeah, I mean, I am looking through. We do generally just looking through here. We do generally beat them at home.
Yeah, we did, because were we 2-0 down to them 1-3-2 twice? We definitely did it once. Bamford scored. It was 2. I think it was might have been 2 for Bamford and Pablo.
My takeaway from the Bamford one is nothing to do with goals. It's to do with Bamford blocking the goalkeeper. But yeah, that was. In fact, I think that was one of the last games I watched before I went back out to America in 2020, 2019, 2020. Before the bad stuff, anyway.
Well, did you? It'll have been 2020, because didn't you go out there for a bit and then get sent home quite soon after?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it must have been 2020.
28th of January. So yeah, that's and I remember, because that was an abysmal first half performance.
Yeah.
But yeah, generally speaking, at home we do tend to do quite well against them. And we probably should hear, like you say, I think they will sit deep. You don't want to speak about them in cliches, but they will sit deep. They will be effective from set pieces.
Yeah, I mean, this is directly nicked from listening to the All Stats and we guys last night, but 40% of their XG is from set pieces. There is a weird one, like Leeds have conceded the least XG from set pieces, but it's just because we've conceded the least, full stop. As like a ratio, we have the fourth most of what we've conceded is from set pieces. So it's just that we don't give away many, but when we do give them away, we are still quite vulnerable from them, and they're really good at attacking them. And obviously that's how they got the goal at their place. Cooper knocking it down to Tanganga. So we've got both of them who were really good in the air, and they also have whichever striker they pick, and I think it'll be one of them. Josh Coburn and Mihailo Ivanovic are both about 6'4". So, like,
Nicholas is there too.
It's no surprise what they're going to do.
Yeah. I think we'll be up for this one. I think my hope is that a performance and a result like that is a bit of a boot up the arse more than anything else. That perhaps because you've got 7 points from those 3 games, I don't want to go as far as to say that there was a job done sort of mentality after that, but more that you'd got through the quote unquote tough fixtures or the big ones,
and then immediately
points. And I'm hoping that's more of a, Ancelotti raises eyebrows, players play better. Like, told you. That's my hope, and Millwall at home probably isn't the worst match to have either, following something like that, because it's one that I think there will be a decent atmosphere for. I know they probably, legally can't bring that many anyway.
It's a long way on a Wednesday and all of that stuff.
But there is always a certain atmosphere to it, and I think the fans will be up for it.
Yeah,
and I think there will be the expectation of, right, sort yourselves out, lads.
Yeah, I would hope so. Like, they're not in bad nick. They've only lost 2 of their last 10. 5 wins, 3 draws. And tactically, there's nothing really interesting. I had a look through the last few games. 4-2-3 won every game except Preston. where Preston play back three, so they played a back three. But we're not going to play back three, so it's not relevant. Am I right in remembering that you are not a fan of Alex Neil?
No, in fact, I think when they hired him, my thought process was, how does this man keep getting championship jobs? He's such an average manager.
Yeah. Whereas I think he gets jobs in the championship precisely because he's an average manager. They know that he's not going to be a disaster, so they'll go, okay, well, that'll be okay.
Does he have a Premier League promotion?
Did
he take a Norwich team up?
I'm trying to remember because obviously Farker did two of them.
Like he's done something at some point.
Yeah, he won the playoffs with Norwich in 2015.
Okay, and we're in 2020.
And he got Sunderland out of League One through the playoffs. But given that Sunderland side that was in League One, I don't consider that an achievement. I consider that failing to make the top two.
Yeah,
they had a ridiculous team, especially in attack.
Yeah, but the thing with Millwall is as well, and there probably always is a ceiling for Millwall in the Championship, but Neil Harris seemed to be again doing his thing of Neil Harris has come in, Millwall are fine. Give me a call when you're next in trouble.
Yeah,
and I'll come back and put in a few months.
Yeah,
and then just leave on a whim. But yeah, so I think Alex Neil has inherited a decent team that probably should be finishing solid mid-table anyway.
Yeah, and that's
and like you say, I think he has started out fairly well.
Yeah, and I mean they are 12th, which that's as mid-table as you can be. So they are slightly different to when we played them last time because it's Alex Neil instead of Neil Harris. They've sold Romain Essa to Palace, who was their best player. They did sign a winger with the money, Camille Negley from Sparta Rotterdam, but he's injured, so I don't know if he's any good. The one that I've seen a little bit of talk about on Twitter is Idomo Imaku, who's like, I thought that he was an academy kid, but he's actually 21 and we signed him off Shamrock Rovers.
Yeah.
But he's not had a great season, but apparently he's been really good the last few weeks, so maybe he stepped up a bit with Essa leaving. They also signed Luke Cundle, a centre mid from Wolves, in January, and he's always been talked up as quite a good player. People were quite excited about that. And the main one they brought in was Tristan Kramer from Brentford, who's likely to play right back. Him I don't know as much about, but he has been consistently in the team, so he must be doing okay. I think that we're going to need Strauch and Rodon to have big games in this because they're going to have a big lump of a shithouse forward. And the Ivanovic, who I think will probably get the nod over Kundal, he's like their joint top scorer with Duncan Watmore, which is only on 5. But he has got all 5 of his since like the back end of December. So he is the one in a bit of form. But if they're going to knock long balls up to him and set pieces up to him, and the other thing that surprised me is Millwall's defensive set piece numbers aren't good, which really surprised me. So I think Rodon and Strauch could have a big impact on this game, both boxes.
Yeah, I was just looking there. They've got Aaron Connolly as well.
Yeah, he got released, didn't he, by Sunderland?
Yeah, and I mean, they've kind of cycled through strikers, haven't they, as well? It's looking like, so they signed him September. So it must have been on a relatively short-term deal anyway.
Yeah. I think it was either a contract till January or it was a contract to the end of the season, but both sides said, we'll call it there. It was one of those two. It's weird because obviously he's been around for quite a long time as Aaron Connolly, and he was it at Brighton where he got that first chance? But he's still only 25.
Yeah, I think he's one of those who started off very well and then I think he may have had an injury in there as well. Then Evan Ferguson came along.
Yeah.
So I think he fell down the pecking order a bit there. I think he's one of those under the right manager. I think there's a good striker to pull out of him.
Yeah.
I think with him, the fact that he was on a free transfer and got picked up by Sunderland at the back end of September, I think probably tells you that he's sort of still looking for a home essentially at this point, or looking to try and settle somewhere.
That was it. And I've just had a look because I knew that there was something else that would made him kind of struggle a bit. He had an alcohol addiction. And that obviously, you can't be a top level athlete and do that. So, but he seems to be all right now. So
not since the late 90s.
Yeah. While I hope he does absolutely fuck all on Wednesday night, I hope that he can get sorted. Obviously we've mentioned it briefly. Farke's press conferences suggest said more or less the same squad.
Yeah,
I do wonder if because he's been back on training, maybe Bamford sneaks onto the bench.
Potentially. I think from these last two games, I think the big miss has been Ampadu, hasn't it?
Yeah.
If we can get him back in the team.
Yeah, I think the last they said was hoping after the international break. So we've only got this midweek game, the game at the weekend, and then it's the internationals, isn't it? So
yeah,
ideal world, he only misses 2 or 3 more.
Yeah, and maybe part of the thinking is that if he is close to fit for Saturday, maybe leave him. Give him the extra time. Yeah. But yeah, I think he has been a bit of a big miss these last couple of games as well. I think we, without him, and this is not to diminish any of his other abilities, I think we've also missed a bit of the shithousery about him of just getting in refs' faces, getting winding people up, and
a bit of that. And just, I think he is probably the best leader in the team.
Yeah,
which probably helps.
Yeah, I think I agree with you there. But yeah, I am very intrigued because knowing what we know about Farke, he's very resistant to change at the best of times. He definitely needs to make at least one change to this team. I absolutely think Aronson needs to come out of this starting lineup.
I do as well. And he keeps getting hooked early as well because he's not having impact on games. I think it is time. To be honest, we've let Farke off a bit easy on this pod because we sort of got talking about the on-field stuff. But the 5 to 10 minutes before Portsmouth scored, if you went on Twitter, it was 5 to 10 minutes of people shouting, "Make a sub, Farke, it isn't working." And then he does it after the goals, which is that lack of proactiveness that we do complain about quite often.
I think there's probably a couple of players. There was maybe an argument that you could have made a change at half-time.
Yeah. And, you'll only ever see that if there's an injury, won't you? Or if it's...
yeah, but I mean, if you just started that second half out with Rothwell coming on for Aronson and maybe go, right, Tanaka, Gruev is now holding midfielder.
Yeah, have a midfield for 10 minutes, get some control.
Yeah. And I know he's not... One, I know he's very rarely ever going to switch out of that formation. But yeah, like you said, there absolutely was. It's not quite Neil Warnock of we've conceded in the 88th minute. Oh, I'd best make a sub now then. But it is one of those things where you go... Because with the Portsmouth game, you couldn't sit there and say they're definitely about to score here because they weren't creating chances to that sort of rate. But it was just that feeling of what we're doing isn't working.
Yeah. And if we're ever in a situation in a championship game where the other team is having 70% of the ball, something's not working. Because even when we play badly, we have loads of the ball.
Yeah, so we weren't even given the chance for Roden and Stroud to just pass it between themselves. They wouldn't even let us do that.
Obviously, we both agree Aronson should drop out. Do you think he will?
I think he might.
Do
I don't think it'll be for Nonto, which is what I would like to see. But I think this might be the game he drops it.
Yeah. Do you think it'll be for Joseph and Peru plays 10?
Yeah, I think so.
That's what I think it'll be, but I would rather see Nonto, to be honest. I just think I really would like to see Nonto and Ramazani start this game. I think that they will be pent up and really up for it. And if they come in and don't take that chance, then that's on them.
Yeah, and it's not like a cup game where it's not like in the cup game against Millwall where there were 10 changes and Ethan Ampadu was left looking around a bunch of lads going, who's this kid? Sam what?
Well, on the subject of that, Sam Chambers has signed a new contract.
Yeah, and
I totally forgot about that until right now.
Yeah, Farker's spoken very, I don't know if I'd say highly, very kindly of Chambers.
It's a 3-year deal.
Yeah, good. I mean, if you are certainly if you're close enough to be considered for starting cup games and things like that at his age, get him tied down.
Yeah.
But yeah, certainly this time now, if you're Ramazani and you're starting and it's Junior Firpo who's behind you, I think you don't have any excuses at that point for not putting in a decent performance.
Yeah.
Similarly, if you're starting right wing and you've got Jaden Bogle playing behind you, I know you lose a bit of the link up that they're used to, but you're playing in a near enough full strength team.
Yeah, I think he'll leave James in. He just might sub him after an hour, especially if it's going well. I think he might sub him after an hour to keep him fresh for the weekend. The only other thing I'd say is, do you think we'll go back to Rothwell Tanaka in midfield?
I think you've got to home games, haven't you? Mid-table team at home. I mean, I was disappointed to see Gruev come in anyway, not because of anything I've got against Gruev, but I just think against teams like that, you should be more proactive and looking to get on the front foot.
Yeah, I did expect Gruev to come back in, but I would have probably rather stuck with Rothwell, I think. But I was fine with it either way, to be honest. I didn't expect Gruev to come in and the Gruev-Tanaka partnership to be that poor.
It turns out all three of them were bad anyway, so it didn't really matter.
Yeah. I didn't expect that. So we reckon Melier, Bogle, Roden, Strauch, Firpo, Rothwell and Tanaka. And then we're going to say James, Peru, Ramazani, or Nonto, or Solomon.
I think he's going to play Solomon.
Do you think it'll just be Peru 10, Joseph up top and Aronson drops out?
Yeah, I think if he's making a change, I think he's only making the one.
Well, I'm going to say that in order to give them that kick up the arse, I've got the same back 7. But I think it'll be James, Nonto, Ramazani, Peru.
Yeah,
I think it's more hope than expectation, but I could see him doing it this time because I think Aronson definitely needs a kick up the arse. Solomon not so much. He's had a couple of quiet games, but he's been good. I just think he will only start 2 of these 3. I think if he starts Wednesday, I think he doesn't start at the weekend.
And again, with his injury record as well,
yeah,
and you've got that depth, use it. Like I think that's been the frustrating thing of these sub appearances, like that again. That Ramazani all of a sudden was the player to come on this week, despite the fact that I think Nonto had done at the very worst. I thought he'd done all right coming off the bench the last couple of times. But this time he went Ramazani, but Ramazani has he only started the Millwall game since he's come back from injury?
It's something like that. It really hasn't been me.
these guys, and none of them ever play for the 23s or anything like that. So not getting that chance to build up any match fitness.
Yeah.
So I do always think especially when you're making your subs on 70 minutes, that it's a lot to expect of players who aren't getting a lot of game time to go fix this.
Yeah. I've had the predictions in. Connie's got 2-0 win, Benny 2-1 win, and Alex has got a 1-1 draw. I think I fancy us to get back to winning ways here. I'm going to say 3-1 Leeds.
Oh, I was going 3-1 as well.
Oh, cool. Second time in a row you've gone for 3-1.
Yeah.
But no, I am gonna have a bit of confidence that we've got enough to do this at home. But I'm not. Put it this way, I'm certainly not as confident as the bookies' prices will be. I can say that for certain. Millwall or draw is probably worth your £5 if you're out.
Yeah, a draw and a defeat have really taken the wind out of the sails after those two very late winners.
Yeah, it has with Leeds fans. We still 1 to 10 to get promoted, which I just think is way too short. But yeah, that will do us for episode 311 of the Mighty Whites podcast. We will be, we'll have to have a quick turnaround. So one of Thursday or Friday evening, I would assume. But yeah, hopefully we can bounce back with a win. And hopefully Burnley and Sheffield United could mess up tonight. That would help. But I don't think it's likely.
Ideal.
Yeah. So that'll do us. I've been Jack. See you.
I've been Casey. Have a good